Many people have already noticed this much. When there is some interior hush, some realized presence, call it grace if you like, the outer scene softens, relationships ease, supply appears where there seemed to be none, and character begins to straighten out without scolding. But remember this, it doesn't come by asking God to fix the outside. It comes by actually making contact with God. And then this inner grace begins to influence our outer life. Most of us, however, reverse the order and then call the failure life. We try to bargain with circumstances, to rearrange people, to time manage fear. And then, when it doesn't hold, we sigh and say, well, that's just the way the world works. Oh no, that is the way the trance works. By hypnosis, I am not speaking of a stage trick or a man swinging a watch. I am speaking of mass suggestion, world thought, fear murmuring through headlines, lack whispering through the bank balance, time pressure marching with the clock, comparison eating at the heart because someone else has more or looks better, and beneath it all, the belief that your good is outside you, in the hands of bosses, markets, bodies, storms, or even in the hands of a God up in the sky who may or may not smile today. Do you see that? That assumption is the trance. And yet, the moment you can observe it, you are no longer fully inside it. This is the first evidence of dehypnotization. You notice the spell instead of obeying it. You catch the inner flinch before it runs your mouth. You hear the panic sentence rise, and you do not salute. Do you see that? The witness in you is not hypnotized. The witness is your doorway. Now I must set a simple map for you, not as a law you must pass like a school exam, but as an unfoldment you will taste and taste again. The way out comes in 3 movements. First, illusion, where you see the lie of outer causation and withdraw your worship from it. Then, stillness, where you rest in inner contact and let suggestions lose their authority. And then, awakening, where reality announces itself so presently, so naturally, that outer life reorganizes without your struggling hands upon it. These are not steel compartments. They interpenetrate, and you will circle them, higher and gentler as you go. But please notice the pivot, because here the world shouts, and here the Christ whispers. You do not come out by fighting the trance. You come out by contact with what is real. Don't wrestle with shadows. Don't argue with suggestions. Don't pray for things. Pray for a realization of God. Never forget this. The kingdom of God is within you, nearer than hands and feet. So leave the outer scene alone for a moment and turn. Turn within, even if only for the space of one honest breath, and you will feel the loosening. Do you see that? The first evidence that you are waking is not that the storm stops, but that you notice the wind without bowing to it. Let us be very plain here, because if stage 1 isn't clear, the rest will wobble. The central illusion is this. If this changes out here, then I can be at peace in here. If the body stops hurting, if the account fills up, if that person apologizes, if the headlines behave, then I can breathe. Oh no, it is the opposite. When peace is realized within, the body, the account, the relationship, the newspaper lose their false authority. And then, the outer begins to take its cue from what is already true at the center. Do you see that? As long as you insist that your harmony is produced by conditions, You have chained your soul to a moving target, and the horizon will keep stepping back like a mirage. Now watch how this illusion prays. It petitions. It pleads with life, with people, with weather, with organs, and then with a god imagined to be perched somewhere beyond the clouds, to rearrange the furniture so you can be okay. Stop such nonsense, and stop such nonsensical religious teachings. There is no such God, no external ruler who changes moods if begged enough. Never forget this. No amount of asking a distant deity to fix the outside is worth the time it takes up. True prayer is not persuasion. It is realization. It is actually making contact with the presence that is already here, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet, and letting that inner grace be the law of your experience. Now I want you to notice the favorite lines of the trance, so you can spot them on sight. I'm behind. I'm not enough. They control my peace. My body decides my fate. Money is supply. Time is running out. If I lose this, I lose myself. Do you see that these are not facts? They are suggestions, atmospheres, recommendations from a world mind that wants your agreement. They have only the power you supply by worship, by fear, by belief, by reaction. Withdraw your worship, and they fall like stage props when the spotlight goes off. Our students are taught this practical law. Inner alignment is causal. Outer conditions are effects. Seek first the kingdom within, not as poetry but as practice, and all these things are added as consequence, not as prize. Reverse the order. Chase effects, prop them up, panic when they wobble, and you suffer. Then you call it bad luck. No, it is simply misplaced causality. Two people can sit under the same storm. One abides in inner contact and finds the provision, the right word, the quiet step. The other abides in fear and finds confirmation of fear. How do you think that happened? Not chance. Law. What you enthrone as cause governs you. Enthrone God realized within, and grace governs. Stage 1, then, is not a war with circumstances. It is a diagnosis and a decisive turning. You look squarely at the lie that conditions produce peace, and you say, no. Peace is the presence. Conditions will report to that. And at that instant, even before a cloud moves, you have begun to wake, because you have taken your prayer out of the marketplace of bargaining and returned it to the sanctuary of contact. Now, once you have said in your heart, peace is the presence, conditions will report to that. You must turn and take an inventory, because the world mind will not applaud your decision. It will whisper. It always whispers. It isn't personal to you. It is impersonal suggestion moving through the race consciousness. And it speaks in first person, so you will take it as your own. I'm in danger. I must defend my position. They are wrong, and I must prove it. If I let this go, I'll be nothing. Do you see that? That is not you. That is the world thought using your voice, borrowing your nervous system, pretending to be your identity so you will give it your belief and your breath. It has no life of its own. It feeds on your agreement. Its favorite food is fear and judgment. Not the storm, not the account, not the headline, but the atmosphere you allow to take you hostage when you read the headline. Animosities, hates, envyings, jealousies, resentments, the simmering need to be right, the quiet satisfaction in another's mistake. All of these are closed doors to grace. They are locks you yourself fasten, and then, Oh, then you sit in a room with no windows and ask why the light feels far away. Stop such nonsense, and stop such self-punishing piety. Do not feed condemnation at breakfast and then wonder why your prayer at noon is dry. Grace cannot flow through a clenched fist. Open the hand, but listen with mercy. I am not saying you are bad. I am saying you are mesmerized. You have been breathing a communal air that says life is a contest and safety belongs to the loudest will. It isn't true. The moment you can see the urge to strike, to correct, to punish, and you can watch it, just watch it, without kneeling to it, a deeper self has already come to the surface. Do you see that? The witness is your freedom. The witness is not angry, not afraid, not trying to win. The witness rests in God is, and because of that, suggestions lose their authority. When the judgment sentence rises, don't argue with it. Don't make a religion out of resisting it. Actually, turn within to the presence. Father, forgive. They know not what they do. Better yet, Father, forgive. I knew not what I was about to do. And then be still. Don't pray for them to change. Don't pray for proof. Pray for a realization of God. Then you will find that the heat goes out of your chest, the tongue cools, the need to be right unhooks, and there is room for wisdom, room for love, room for whatever grace has in mind. Our students are taught to keep a clean atmosphere. Lack of judgment, lack of criticism, lack of condemnation. So there is no way to prevent God's grace reaching us. Judge not was not a moral slogan. It was a practical law of receptivity. Every time you indulge the little sting of superiority, you thicken the membrane between you and your own heart's assurance. Every time you release it, truly release it, you thin that veil. Leave the world mind hungry. Starve it of your fear and your fury, and it will pass on. Feed the presence with quiet consent, and you will find the trance cannot stand where you stand. Now we must settle the question that keeps so many circling the door and never entering. Am I qualified? I say to you out of a heart full of love, and through years of actually living this work, it makes no difference to what degree you think you have fallen. Absolutely none. Grace is not a prize handed out to the best behaved. Grace is the nature of God given before behavior changes, and it is grace that changes behavior. Oh no, it is not get good and then get God. It is make contact with God, and goodness will unfold as naturally as dawn unfolds out of night. Do you see that? Reverse it, and you will remain in the night, scrubbing yourself with sand and calling it repentance. Shame is part of the hypnosis. Shame is the world mind speaking in the accent of conscience to keep your attention locked on me, my fault, my past, so you never look up and make contact with the presence that dissolves both root and fruit. Stop such nonsense, and stop such self-punishing religion. Never forget this. God isn't up in heaven waiting for you to promise better conduct before opening the door. I will never leave you nor forsake you. The kingdom of God is within you, nearer than hands and feet, closer than breathing. You carry your God with you wherever you go, even into your worst hour. And that is precisely why your worst hour is not your future. Forgiveness, then, is not a moral trophy. It is a solvent. 70 times 7, the Master said. Why? Because each sincere turning releases another layer of the suggestion until the habit has nothing left to feed on. You forgive not to approve a wrong, but to refuse a barrier in consciousness. Do you see that? You keep the channel clear so grace can do the only real work there is: healing. In this way, sins are not only forgiven, they are healed. The desire evaporates. The compulsion dries up. The identity that sinned loses its center because the I of you is recognized as God's very own life. Now listen very closely. Don't pray for a clean record. Don't beg for a lighter sentence from a changing deity. Pray for a realization of God. Turn within, not when you feel worthy, but precisely when you feel unworthy. Voice, even haltingly, "Father, forgive. I knew not what I did." And then be still. Hold yourself in quietness and in confidence. If there is an amends to make, the same presence that forgives will guide the step, and you will take it simply, without drama, without self-hatred. If there is nothing to be done outwardly, leave the outer alone and keep the atmosphere clean. Lack of judgment, lack of criticism, lack of condemnation. So there is no way to prevent God's grace reaching you. The woman taken in adultery was not disqualified. The thief at the last breath was not disqualified. The persecutor, who became apostle, was not disqualified. How then will you, with your ordinary human tangles, be the first exception in the universe? Oh no, not for a moment. This is the law of the Spirit of life. Mercy first, healing following. Conduct reforming as effect, not as bribe. And as this mercy is accepted, the trance loosens. The self-focus unhooks. Attention turns Godward, and the stillness opens before you like a quiet door already ajar. Do you see that? Grace is available first, not last. And that is why the spell breaks. Now here is where many of us, with the best of intentions, miss the door that is already open. We make a hobby out of stage 1. We diagnose and re-diagnose. We label every twitch of fear as world mind. We attend to 10 more lectures. We collect phrases about suggestion the way others collect stamps. And we keep the analysis running like background music while the heart stays dry. Stop such nonsense. The purpose of seeing the lie is to withdraw worship from it, not to build a museum around it. Do you see that? The first evidence of dehypnotization is noticing the trance. The second is refusing to feed it. The third, this is the door, is turning where the power is. You do not overcome illusion by argument. You do not win by composing sharper thoughts to pierce duller thoughts. You do not sanctify yourself by policing the mind as if it were a city under curfew. Oh no. You come out by contact, actually, by turning to the kingdom within and resting there. Never forget this. The presence you seek is not out there to be persuaded. The presence is the I at the center of you, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground, not because of geography, but because God is where you are. Do you see that? Then the pivot is simple. Stop trying to outshout suggestions and begin to abide in what needs no defense. What then is our prayer? Not petition, not bargaining. Contact prayer. A resting, a listening, a communion without object. It sounds like this within you, without words yet somehow as a word. God is. Not God please, not God when. Just God is. And you sit inside that as a fact, not as a wish, and you let it inform your breath, your chest, the space behind the eyes, and you do not strain to believe it. You yield to it. It is a reverent ease. It is the hush in which grace announces itself without your managing it. Do you see that? In that posture, the trance has no meal. It cannot feed on reaction because you are not serving any. Here is your micro practice. When the suggestion arises, fear in the stomach, judgment on the tongue, lack on the ledger, do not wrestle. Do not rehearse the analysis. Do not quote yourself at yourself. Turn, quietly. One soft breath. God is. Say it inwardly and feel it as near as breath. Then ask, as a checkpoint, if God were as near as breathing, what would be left to fear right now? Wait 2 seconds. Let the answer not be words, but the loosening itself. If the mind tries to resume the old debate, bless it and return. God is. Each return is the door. Each consent is contact, and contact, not argument, dissolves suggestion. Leave the outer scene unmeddled for this moment. Let analysis finish its rightful task of pointing, and then let it be silent, so prayer can do its work. Hold yourself in quietness and in confidence. God is, and in that simple realization, the authority of the trance ebbs, and you find you have already stepped through. Stage 2 is this holy pause, in which you no longer supply the trance with your breath. Stillness is not vacancy. It is receptivity. It is awareness resting in presence until the mind ceases dictating reality and returns to its rightful office as servant. Be still and know that I am God. Do you hear that? Be still, not blank, not numb, and know, not guess, not bargain. Stillness is knowing, and the knowing is of God at the center of you, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. The posture is simple, and it is strong. Quietness and confidence. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Not the confidence of human will, not the tight jaw that says, I will make something happen. Oh no, this is a laid-down sword. You do not strive to induce an experience. You relax into the experience that already is. You do not hold your breath to reach God. You let the breath come and go inside the fact that God is. Do you see that? It is a resting, and the rest is faith's body language. Now I must warn you in love, because the old habit will protest like a shopkeeper at closing time. The mind will itch with errands, the body will twitch, the schedule will shout. Memories will parade through as if they were urgent telegrams. Let them. These are withdrawals from suggestion. The world mind has been eating at your table, and when you stop serving belief and reaction, it rattles the dishes. Do not argue. Do not fix. Smile inwardly and return to God is. Sit 1 minute longer than the first wave of protest. Sit 1 breath deeper than the second wave of restlessness. Each consent is authority reclaimed, and in that consent the trance cannot feed, because you are not supplying it with attention, fear, or fury. Negative, then positive. Do not try to fix the outer life in meditation. Stop such nonsense. Leave it as it is. Don't pray for people to change. Don't pray for supply to hurry. Don't pray for pain to vanish. Pray for a realization of God. Seek first the kingdom of God within, not as poetry, but as practice. And let grace decide what, when, and how. Do you see that? You are moving causality back to its rightful source. And here is the practical law our students prove again and again. When stillness becomes natural, when you can drop into that holy pause the way a bird drops to its nest, outer problems begin to rearrange themselves, often quietly, often without your pushing hand. The phone call comes you could not have engineered. The misunderstanding loosens without the speech you rehearsed. The body, relieved of the pressure of fear, responds to a wisdom you did not invent. The necessary step appears as simple next, not as heroics. How do you think that happened? Not chance. Grace. Inner realization releases an influence, and that influence, being God, never returns void. Hold yourself, then, in quietness and in confidence. One soft breath. God is. Not to get, but to know. Sit until the compulsion to manage lessens and the gentle certainty rises of its own accord. In that certainty, suggestions lose their authority because you have stopped paying their salary. And as that becomes your habit, you will discover that stillness is not escape at all. It is law in action. The kingdom within announcing itself, and the world, hearing, falls into order. Do you see that? Stillness is not a retreat from life. It is the only activity that is life. Don't let the world mind sell you a caricature of quiet as passivity. Oh no. Stop such nonsense. In that pause, you are not doing nothing. You are making contact, actually, with the source from which all true motion proceeds. I of mine own self can do nothing was never an excuse to be idle. It was a statement of law. Contact is the cause. Movement is the effect. Do you see that? The branch does not strain to produce fruit. It abides, and fruit appears by nature. In the same way, you abide in God is, and action, words, openings unfold from that without your pushing on the world to make it obey. Unfoldment is what we call the way grace appears in time without your whip. It is not your schedule wearing a halo. It is the natural revealing of what already is true in God, stepped down as guidance and timing and provision in ways the day can understand. A name comes to you and you call, not to make something happen, but because you are participating in what is already happening. A door that you once hammered on is simply not yours anymore, and there is no heat in you to force it. Instead, a quieter door just to the left is slightly ajar, and you walk through. The meeting you thought you needed is canceled, and it spares you a wrong alliance. A word you were rehearsing is never spoken, and a misunderstanding dissolves without the speech. How do you think that happens? Not chance. Grace. Inner contact releases an influence, and that influence arranges the sequence without fanfare. Do not look for fireworks. Look for order. Wrong associations fall away without quarrel. Right companions appear without audition. Habits that clung loosen, not because you wrestled them to the floor, but because you lost interest in the soil that fed them. Health patterns soften as fear is no longer the foreman of the body. The system responds to a governance not born of anxiety. The appetite to rush, to prove, to be first, gives way to sufficiency. And sufficiency is supply in action. Money comes as needed, not always as a jackpot, but as the exactness of This day our daily bread. Delays protect you. Closed doors are mercy. A traffic jam that saves you from a worse entanglement is not a punishment. It is order speaking in the only language that could be heard at that hour. Do you see that? And mark this well. The mind that rests is the mind that forgives. Condemnation is agitation, and agitation is static on the line. Keep the atmosphere clean. Lack of judgment, lack of criticism, lack of condemnation. So there is no way to prevent God's grace reaching you. When the old sentence rises, "They are wrong, and I must correct them," turn within. "Father, forgive. We knew not what we did." Then watch the guidance that comes out of quiet. Sometimes say nothing. Sometimes apologize. Sometimes go. Sometimes stay. And because it comes from contact, it carries authority without force, and effect follows without struggle. So the checkpoint is simple. How do you know stillness is working? Life reorders from within. Compulsions ease. The next step is obvious, and the need to manage every outcome relaxes its grip. You are not escaping. You are governing by grace. Inner contact is causal. Outer changes are effects, reliable, quiet, and sufficient. Do you see that? Now we come to the point for which all this quiet was preparing you. Awakening is not an attainment. It is a recognition. You do not become real. You discover the real that has been shining as the I of you, while suggestion paraded as your name. Do you see that? When the trance runs out of your breath and stillness holds the room, what remains is what has always been. God, the I of your very being, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. Never forget this. The kingdom of God is within you, and when it is noticed, not argued for, not proved, simply noticed, awakening has dawned. You will say, "But how will I know?" By what falls away. Less compulsion to control. Less need to be right. A compassion that does not wobble into sentimentality because it is not trying to purchase virtue. It is simply what love is when fear is not managing it. A steadiness in the face of headlines. A quiet capacity to hear bad news without losing inner government. A willingness to act decisively without the old heat of self-importance. Do you see that? Nothing has been added to you. Something has been subtracted. The belief that outer causation owns you. Now I say to you out of love, do not look for fireworks. Stop such nonsense. Reality does not arrive like a parade around the corner. It announces itself the way light fills a room when you open the shutters. There is clarity where there was argument. There is right action that appears as next without wrestling. There is a naturalness that needs no defense because it isn't performing. If you find yourself needing to insist, to convince, to certify your experience to yourself or others, turn again to stillness. The real does not shout. It simply is. God is. Identity then. Gently, humbly, voice within. I. Now hear what that I is not. It is not the anxious biography, not the resume of losses and wins, not the injured historian keeping accounts. It is presence, the same I that said, "I am with you always." Do you see that? When you say I from here, there is no boast in it. It is a resting. I and the Father are one, not as theology to brandish, but as the only fact that leaves you harmless and unafraid. And what of conduct? It becomes simple. You do not live to demonstrate something. You live because life is demonstrating itself as you. You answer the phone when it rings within. You decline when the hush declines. You give because supply is being itself as your sufficiency. You forgive because there is nothing in you that prefers a barrier to a blessing. The outer scene reorganizes, not to reward you for piety, but because grace has taken its rightful place as cause. How do you think that happens? Not chance. Law. Contact revealed as identity is the law of your life. Awakening, then, is not a crown. It is humility. It does not lift you above others. It removes the above and below. It leaves you on holy ground wherever you stand. Kitchen, office, hospital, traffic light. Because the one you sought is the one you are in truth. There is nothing to prove. There is only to notice. God is. Do you see that? Now do not take this dawning and try to freeze it into a photograph and hang it on the wall. Awakening is not a single sunrise you must defend. It is the nature of light itself, ever present, ever available, ever revealing. And you will discover that it comes to you in a living cycle. You will re-encounter illusion, yes, but subtler, thinner, earlier in the day. And you will notice it sooner, feed it less, and turn quicker to the center. Do you see that? That is progress. Not in fireworks, but in swifter recognition and gentler obedience to grace. Here is how the old pattern tries to reassert itself. Stress taps your shoulder. An email, a pain, a bill. And suggestion rushes in with its ancient lines. You forget for a moment and begin to petition. Please change this. Hurry that. Petition stirs agitation. Agitation thickens the air. And that thickness makes stillness feel far. Then condemnation arrives. See, you've lost it. You're back where you started. Stop such nonsense. Condemnation is just another suggestion pretending to be responsible. It is the same world mind in a sober suit. You have not lost anything. You simply stepped out of contact for a moment. Step back. Make this your checkpoint and keep it simple. Notice the suggestion. Pause. Return to God is. Rest. Listen. And then act from the quiet. That is the whole path in a sentence. You notice without drama. You pause, one soft breath. You return, God is, felt as near as breathing. You rest, no managing, no bargaining. You listen, what rises in the hush. And then you act, not to prove something, not to fix the universe, but to take the next obvious step that appears in peace. Do you see that? You have restored causality to its rightful order. Contact first, conduct following. This is not a once-a-year retreat practice. It is the rhythm of a day. Morning. A few minutes in stillness before the world speaks, to establish the center. God is, and to let grace outline the day without your whip. Midday. 2 or 3 brief pauses, at a doorway, at a red light, between calls, to notice suggestion, to breathe, to return to contact, to let the next word be given rather than grabbed. Evening. Forgiveness as atmosphere. Release the day, 70 times 7 if needed. Let lack of judgment, lack of criticism, lack of condemnation sweep the room of consciousness, so there is no way to prevent God's grace reaching you in the night. This is how the well stays full while others are still drawing buckets. And as you repeat this, again and again, notice the spiral. The same categories of temptation may visit, but their costumes grow more delicate, and you see through them earlier. Pride dresses as zeal, fear dresses as caution, willfulness dresses as prudence. But the heart, trained by contact, recognizes the tone. You pivot sooner. You rest faster. You act more simply. How do you think that happens? Not chance. Law. Each return to stillness deepens awakening. Each God is thins the veil. Each forgiven moment clears another barrier you once mistook for yourself. So if tomorrow you find the trance at your door, do not argue with the weather. Smile, turn within, and let the same grace that lifted you yesterday lift you today. Higher, not by strain, but by the natural law of unfoldment. God is. Do you see that? Now we seal the work, and we do it with a simplicity that cannot be improved upon. There is only one thing you ever have to know to be in prayer. God is. Not God will be if I behave. Not God used to be back in better days. Not God might be if the market turns. God is, now, here, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. Say it within, gently, humbly. God is. And sit until the words cease to be words and become awareness. Don't pray for things. Don't pray for conditions. Pray for a realization of God, and then let grace be grace. Do you see that? Then keep the channel clear so that realization may find you every hour it seeks you. Maintain the atmosphere in which grace travels freely. Love instead of animosity. Forgiveness instead of accusation. Lack of judgment. Lack of criticism. Lack of condemnation. So there is no way to prevent God's grace reaching you. This is not moral window dressing. It is practical law. Condemnation thickens the air. Forgiveness thins the veil. When the urge to correct, to punish, to be right flares up, turn within and whisper, "Father, forgive. We knew not what we did." And let the heat drop out of your chest. In that cool, the way opens again. Do you see that? Now the seal in conduct. After stillness, take the next right step quietly. You are not proving spirituality. You are obeying grace. If an apology rises, make it without speechifying. If a call appears, place it without drama. If the guidance is wait, wait without sulking. Begin to act as if it were so, as if inner contact is trustworthy, as if the branch need only abide to bear fruit, as if supply is sufficiency in motion and will meet you on the path, not in your pushing. No fanfare, no announcement. Movement out of peace carries its own authority and accomplishes what argument never could. Do you see that? Set your expectation aright. You are not trying to get God to do something. Stop such nonsense. You are consenting to what already is to live itself through you. I of mine own self can do nothing. Precisely. Therefore, rest in God is, and let thy will be done be not a grim surrender, but a glad consent. You will find the outer scene rearranging itself, not by your pressure, but as effect of inner law. The door that is yours opens. The door that is not yours soft closes. The strength to act appears as needed, and the wisdom to refrain is as much a gift as the courage to proceed. So we end as we began, only higher. Illusion fades because you stop feeding it. Stillness steadies because you return to it. Awakening lives itself in ordinary moments because reality needs no stage to be real. Your mantra? God is. Your atmosphere? Forgiveness, love, no judgment. Your seal? Act from the quiet as if it were so. Hold yourself in quietness and in confidence, and let grace have its way. God is. Do you see that?